a beautiful question. So thank you everyone in our YouTube audience also for joining us, and let's kick it right off. So, I love that you're feeling great today, and if one person benefits from this, that'd be a win. So, what is the beautiful question, or let's hear that beautiful question that drives you, that you live your life as an attempt to better understand?
In all honesty, it's how do people find what makes them unique and happy? That's the question that I think of every day.
What makes people unique and happy?
Mhm.
Wow, that's really great. And so where did you find this in your life, or when did you realize that this was something that you wanted to almost serve better understanding of that?
It was honestly when I went through my own burnout. So it was in a moment of I say now, darkness, where I didn't know those things about myself. And from that moment of, extreme burnout, which was sort of the culmination of many things, but that led to a lot of depression and anxiety on my own part, and years on working to pull myself out from there to get to where I am today. That moment happened about 6 years ago, actually. We're close to like a 6 year mark on it, surprisingly enough. And I do actually, it's like a milestone in my mind. But through that work is what really, it made me open my eyes to the whole world. And I started seeing that a lot of the people that were giving me advice, as a person sort of going through my own journey, was in fact advice, that they could only give me from their perspective. And the thing was that the majority of people around me were pretty sad in their own lives, and that advice that I was following was sort of leading me down this same path. And I wanted to break the cycle. And I wanted to break the cycle not only for myself, and for my children and my family, but I really want to break the cycle for everybody.
All right. And, I'm going to bring up our screen share here of some of the notes that we were taking before that. And again, if you're listening to this on the podcast, we'll try to speak through this, and maybe you guys can follow along, or, check us out on Blueprints YouTube. That's BLUPRNT. And as you see on here, I was really starting to connect, Kelly, the idea of limitations with good intentions.
Yeah,
These people
totally.
probably had every intention to help you, but to
Hmm.
the limit of how they knew how to help themselves or self-love.
Exactly.
Wow. Here we go. We're off to the races already. So what would you add to that?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like it's sort of like society, a lot of it in my mind is societal expectation. Again, I've read so too many self-help books to probably be able to list. I've been going through therapy for a really long time. I've worked with working with a business coach now. So this is not something that I have figured out alone. Just to be clear to everyone, it's 100% doable. I just don't want someone to think that all of a sudden I just came up with this out of the blue and everything's just fine. Because when you're going through that moment, if you're in that place, it feels very big. And the thing is that, when you think back, for me, it was thinking back all the way through therapy into my childhood. When you realize that that person that you were as a young child before the world was able to mold you, in any way, school, parents, and, the influence that you have in your life, you're sort of free. And as those pieces start to mold you into, and there's reasons, school was created in a way for, being able to educate masses. And that means that who you are as unique, if you don't fit in it, to them being able to perform their function, and making it difficult, you kind of get the label that you're bad. And that sort of continues on through life into work. And it's really hard when you are that person that has that feel, because you start to believe it, right? You do sort of start to believe the things that people are saying.
Yeah, The Looking Glass. Are you familiar with Thomas Coulet?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I figured you were. It's just really amazing. So what's the other side of freedom when it comes to a label?
The stuck side, you mean? The sort of, it's like in a box. I don't know how to, I really don't know the right word to describe that, but yeah, I feel like you're stuck, you're in a box. I tend to say, a lot of things that society has sort of created for us over years um, is in a box. They want you to fit in a box versus be outside of the box.
Wow, that's that's really powerful. And so, we have to work with people in a social contract. The world is globalized and whatnot. How have you found that you can, maintain that self-love and that acknowledgement of the things that are really special about you that get you through those tough times, the things that people love you for? How do you maintain that?
Well, it's like there's some habits, really, in all honesty, that I do pretty much on an everyday basis, and I find myself slipping when I don't. And those habits, I would say, of utmost importance is, so I don't even know if I can put these in order, but I'll try. Of utmost importance, I would say, is sleep. I'm a mother of three, so I'm fully aware of what life is like when you don't sleep. And that makes it quite a bit harder to be able to do a lot of things. I would say, secondly, is probably nutrition. Um, and I don't know if I could couple that with sort of like physical. So like maybe like, you know, physical health, I guess, and nutrition being part of that, making sure that you move every day, because moving doesn't, just sort of like bad energy can get stuck in your body. So I find that physical movement releases bad energy, but also provides you with these endorphins that make you feel amazing. And the more fit you are, the stronger your brain is. So there's all reasons behind that. It's not only because of the way you could look, it really is more than that. I would also say mental health. That's such a huge, important piece for me every day. Um,
That's really cool. Because are you pointing out that vanity gets in the way of progression? Because that's
Sometimes,
pretty
yeah,
powerful. Yeah.
yeah. Well, remember too, like what we see in media um, is, someone's perception, right? So everybody, my mother said this to me as a young child. It's just something that's always stuck with me. Everybody finds something different beautiful because we are in fact all unique. But media, and if you look back over time, right, it's that what we perceive, what we're told to perceive as beautiful has changed. So um, maybe just because to the general public you look beautiful today, that might have not been the general public's view of beauty in the past. But so it's sort of, yeah, depending on what the social construct of the day is, right? That's sort of how you define beautiful. But that doesn't mean that that's what I think is beautiful. One person might think, um, long hair is beautiful. Another person might think something else, right? We all have our different things that we uh, find beautiful and interesting. So,
I think my actually during raising kids, young kids right now with a lack of sleep in the house, I find it actually quite beautiful when I see my wife and my son sort of passed out in the chair.
yes,
Like that is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And if I can appreciate the special things about myself, because yes, you're driven, yes, you can do these great things. And we oftentimes, I know some struggle with even doing those things for themselves right off the
yes,
bat. So the health and these kinds of things, and it's incredible. I feel as though your point is that it's incredible that if you just take that proactive step of health or other things like that, how much it comes back in ways that you would have never imagined into that thing you
exactly.
want to do for people.
Yes, exactly. I've heard the analogy used so many times, especially for mothers, I find, but I think there's so many more parents that are understanding this. I think just traditionally it's been mothers. It's really hard for us to pour from an empty cup. And the thing is, when you're tired, you're trying to do everything for everybody else. Some people, yes, call it self-care, self-love, but it's more that, like, we want to give, but we need to be strong enough to give. So it's like creating our strength to be able to do more. I don't know about you, but like, have you noticed, like, if you have just one of those days where like you worked too much that day, you're super, super tired, what the patience you can give to your kids looks a lot differently, right? I mean, so although some people argue, right, when they're in those moments where they don't fully understand this yet, where they say like, well, I feel so guilty and terrible that I'm taking time away from my kids or work because I want to, like, go for a walk. well, actually you're giving them more in the end because you've done that.
Yeah, I can really understand that. I did the stay-at-home dad thing during COVID since I was already a remote worker, and that really changed my perspective on a lot of things. I watched myself go through those frustration moments, and I'm sure there's at least one parent in the audience that can relate. Wow, that went a little further than it would normally had if I had my social things and things
Yes.
like that to vent that, we were all going through a lot of change. So hoo-ah for everybody. Our kids are alive, you're alive, we're here. That's
Oh yeah.
something to be extremely grateful for. So is
And
it
grateful is a really good point because that was on my list of like really important habits every day is thinking through what you're grateful for. And as you just pointed out, sometimes your list of grateful things are really, really big and awesome. And sometimes they're just like coffee. Sometimes they're just, the most simplest, we're alive. Everybody's fed. We have a roof over our head. Like it could be on a daily basis, my list. And I try to at least make sure that I think of 5 when I wake up and I think of 5 before I go to bed. It's really hard to be sad when you're grateful. And I really try to mix up those things. I don't only look for the super big things. I look for just the basic everyday things that, make my life happy.
it's the small things, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. I Have you had a experience where you had a lot and then you had a little and that appreciation rose?
Over my life. The journey of life is up and down for sure. Yes, multiple times.
It's amazing. I May I relate to
Of
you
course,
for a
of
moment?
course.
When I left financial trading, I was making very good money, and then I decided to go into a space where I didn't know how to invest, and building a incubator and things like that. And then I ended up driving Uber and whatnot to go out, and I actually found that I would ask questions to people, and a mix of 50, 40 different people during the day. The feedback was incredible, but it didn't pay the bills, right? And
Mhm.
so it got to those stress moments where me and my wife are like, we don't talk to each other this way. What is happening? And it was the things that we thought we were immune to that really just slowly creeped in because we weren't taking care of. Like date night was last night,
Yep.
and there's this romance movie called A Little Chaos.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's really good. It's about a French lady that designed some of the Versailles Gardens for King Louis.
Okay.
And she's
Wow.
sort of one of these forgotten women,
Hmm.
history kind of things. And so,
Yep.
my wife's very powered up about those things. So we're watching a lot of that kind of stuff. And
Uh-huh.
so it's the small little appreciations in her life where it's just like, oh, I enjoy this rock. And let me spend just 5 minutes staring at my child smile. Or
Yep.
because she'd actually had lost her child, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I really appreciate that you're so grateful and pumped every time I talk to you, and that's almost contagious for people around you, and you can do some amazing things for your kids, like you talked about. That was the first thing I heard is like, "Me and my kids are gonna do better, and we're gonna heal this generational sin. Hoo-ah!"
Seriously. Seriously. I
Yeah.
would love that. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. I mean, I get emotional over this stuff because I mean, as you know, when you go through these ups and downs, like it really kind of gets to you. You really feel it, you know it, you've lived it.
So we talked a little bit about your origin story, and I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're doing about that these days. And then let's get into on our format, as everybody knows, the eye of the hurricane, and we're just going to be in your purpose with you, and we can go around and parallel whatever we want, or so ask some questions where we expand the topic, and people can
Sure.
respond back on Anchor with voice messages, or we can take that to social and expand those questions from there.
That sounds good. Well, what sort of the culmination of all of this when COVID hit was that I had done all this work on myself and also my middle child. It had quite a bout of sadness, which turns out she was diagnosed with dyslexia, anxiety, and ADHD. at the time when I was having my major burnout and not able to get out of bed, she was quite sad as well. So this has been something truly that we worked through as a family, her and I in particular, but it sort of reverberated to the rest of our family, as you just described. You know, a smile is contagious, so to speak. The positivity is contagious, which is great because it's actually been such a beauty for our family and everyone around us. But when COVID hit, you know, the interesting thing is so many things changed at once. Now I'm used to working from home. I do travel normally and I love to be around people, but I was already fully comfortable with Zoom. I noticed pretty quickly within like the first month that people were struggling in all different ways, but mostly people were pretty sad. I noticed the conversations with people, you know, I don't know about you, but I talk with a lot of people and, you know, I tend to be fairly high energy, fairly positive. And so when you talk with someone that's sad, it's sort of just everything sort of deflates and everything comes down and it's like, oh, right. Yeah. And I almost want to just help them. Like that's what was my feeling was like, why are you like, I want to talk with them and I'm, you know, and you just can't talk to everybody in the whole world. But I realized that what I could do was I could take all the stuff that I've learned. I could take with including the work that I've done professionally on just, you know, helping people navigate career and learning and smash it all up and create this podcast called Let's Talk About Skills, Baby. When I say skills, most people first think, you know, probably work related skills, right? But it sort of is. It's more what I would refer to as life skills. Life skills are things that are developed through a typical like growth mindset style skills. So it could be things like resilience is probably the biggest one, persistence. It's more skills that sort of make you successful. I realize, and everyone should be aware of this, that success is really your own definition of success. So don't think of success in the sense of like financial, high job, you know, anything like that. It just means that these life skills make you and your version of success successful in personal and professional life. And I lived it not only with myself, with my daughter, so people of different age groups, right? With my husband, with my family, with all these people around me. So I knew that if I could start sharing these stories, very similar to what you're doing with this particular podcast as well, maybe that one person would hear it, or maybe a few people would hear it, or maybe more, and it would really help them. So that was sort of for me the first step of what I could do. And then it has kind of snowballed from there because I tend to think of life as sort of the positive, negative energy concept. You know, I also have faith, but I believe that, you know, if people are scientific, like it's true that positive things attract each other. And so I put all this positive energy out there and all of a sudden more just started happening. And that's led into another business where I can help more people, and consulting work where I can help more people, and partnerships where I can help help lift other businesses up that are trying to do great work. Because when you think about this, it's not only about me, it's about how do we, if we want to impact, you know, the most people's lives, they're not all going to just hear my podcast. They might hear your podcast. And now we've both done this together. And so that's made a bigger amplified audience, right? And then we also, you know, one of the businesses that we created was also Growth Network podcasts. And the idea being when we have people that have these wonderful voices that are focused on social impact, how can we help raise and uplift them and provide them resources and services to get their voices out there? Again, amplifying the good that could be had, kindness all around. So that's kind of the big story. I'm sure that there's more because the more that I do, it's like the more things that keep happening and keep opening for, you know, life and work and everything.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you're open to things. And then I'll bring in the old yin and yang side of it. The other side would be careful what you wish for. It might actually come true. And when you wish in the way you do, I hope that comes true for you.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's great. So I had that clear in my mind. You really found a lot of people to be sad, and I remember that. I love asking people what people are excited about, and for the first time in a long time, people are like, "I'm not excited about anything,
Yeah.
Brian." And I'm like, "Come on, just one thing," and they're like, "Stop annoying me."
Yeah,
right? And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Let's hunker down with a bunch of people that, are really positive about things and at least keep that light going, that lighthouse.
yes,
And that started to grow and people are coming in on their own time, right? Because, you know,
exactly.
quality and ketchup are two different things. You can't put quality on a hot dog. You know what I mean?
I actually really love that analogy because, it's sort of like the lip, for women, again, it's just because being a woman, you tend to be able to understand from a woman's perspective better. When I was a child, and, young adult, young teenager, it was pretty common in my family that like you were sad about something, you were having a bad day, like put your makeup on, get going. Like it doesn't matter. You push that way deep down inside and you get out there and put your face on. And that is just not the way to do it because I can tell you from experience, the more you push it down, the more you forget that it's there, the more that you make the world think that everything is okay, the bigger blow up you're going to have. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, you want to share a blow up with us?
Yeah. Man,
Yeah.
which one?
You pick one that comes to mind, one that's, really maybe close to something you've been working on recently, or, maybe that's in alignment with other people are feeling in the world. So something you've been thinking about that's maybe you've got a blow up that's taught you lessons that you've used recently.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really for me goes back to the major blowout. Like this was the burnout situation. Like it was a culmination of things. But in all honesty, what it led me to do, it was right after I had my third child. So I have three children. Pregnancy is not so great for me. And I mention this because this is part of what led this up to this. So there was a 10-year period of my life where I had a lot of pregnancies, all of the ones that were resulted in successful children that I'm so thankful to have today were very difficult. I was in and out of the hospital on hospital bed rest and IVs most of the time. So there was a long stretch of time where in my personal life, things were quite difficult, as you mentioned earlier and shared as things with your wife when you were making that transition. That was kind of the environment for my husband and I. When there's a lot of stress in your life, um, wherever it comes from, you tend to be very you're in your head, and so you're not your best self. And then on the professional side, I was pushing myself to limits that just weren't healthy. Working too much, focusing on a startup or multiple startups at the time, not sleeping. So the candle was basically being burned at both ends until it met in the middle is essentially what happened. And again, like I said, this was a 10-year period, which resulted in me just up and quitting my job with the thought in my head that even if we go bankrupt and lose our house, it would be better than the way that I feel right now. It was so all encompassing sadness. And my breakdown, this wasn't a moment of like anger release. That had all happened in short spurts throughout this time frame, so like the blowout was really truly for me just full on my body like collapsed upon itself. Like I could not get out of bed. I honestly just couldn't function. Things like, this is why I share this because I know that there's all different levels of people having this, right? It's like the thought of getting out of bed, let alone brushing my teeth, the super simplest things were so overwhelming. So to even think about, like something like going food shopping or oh my goodness, like organizing a desk, like just things like that were so overwhelming. Everything was overwhelming. And that lasted a few months. So that was my biggest blowout. And that really let me look back to see that all of those little signs that were happening along the way, the little ones, I should have listened to my own body and my own inside internal voice that something was really wrong. I just kept pushing it way down.
Yep, just put your makeup on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you definitely know how to get through some tough things. I'm glad that you have three very healthy kids, and
Thank you.
I understand at least from a distance the things that some women go through for children. And
Mm-hmm.
I've walked in that step, and that's a really interesting thing. If you're bringing a business into the world, right? You're probably extremely well prepared if you've been a mother before. You know what I mean? This is sort of, you could probably, well, I'll ask this as a question. Do you
Sure.
feel as though the principles of raising children apply well to business?
Honestly, it's amazing, truly amazing. I don't think I'd ever be able to do what I do today without having gone through all of that. And that's really part of the purpose of the podcast and all the work, because the thing is that I just don't think we truly, as people, realize that these struggles that we go through our life, we learn such important skills that if you want to be an entrepreneur, whatever you want to do professionally, it's like a cakewalk in comparison to the stuff you dealt with in your life, I promise.
That's really encouraging for a lot of people. And, I think coming back to what you're saying, it starts with a lot of just being grateful, just having
Mhm.
10 affirmations that you can make for yourself every day. Or some people do sticky notes, or some people do
Yep.
these things. And it does work if you stick to it. However, a lot of changes are short lived
Yep.
and they aren't long term integrated. And I
Yep.
love how you closed with it in the sense of, I should have listened.
Yes.
I'm sure there's
Yes.
one person in the audience, if you're listening to us, if you have struggles listening, raise your hand, you know what I mean? Like
Seriously.
I'll raise both hands, right?
Yeah.
Because like if it wasn't that I wasn't not listening, like personally, it was like, hey, there's this marketing thing. Let's think of it as a tree. And the guy comes in, Oliver, and he says, hey, you need this tree. And I'm like, cool. What's a tree? You know what I mean? Like, what's this marketing thing?
Yeah.
Like those moments where you have to trust someone on top of listening, then, and that's almost what I find a different form of listening. So thank you for the reminder of that. That's something that's normal that we all struggle with.
So is. It so is. And I love like your affirmations. Do you mind if I know we're live, but I'll show you. This is something, like I said, these daily habits, and also every year, where you have to sort of reframe. Sometimes it's twice a year for me, depending on how much has happened. And I also mentioned that just because I had this one big moment and I worked myself up from that, remember, life is kind of ups and downs. My dips and rises are a lot shallower than they used to be. Like the dips went really low before. I've been able to, regulate, but the regulation comes from like reframing all the time. And so if you don't mind, I'll share with you
Mhm.
guys, for those of you who are watching on video, and sorry for my messy desk right now, there is a lot going on. This is the beginnings of this year's vision board. I don't have it up on the wall yet because I'm terrible at hanging things up on the wall, but you may notice that there's things that's on the right over there. If you can't see it, it says what I tell myself when I'm feeling discouraged. There's an affirmation list. There's kind cards that I've received from people. There's like inspiration, pictures of my family. Let me pull you back here up to the top of my computer. But the thing being that I do that sometimes twice a year. If I've had a moment in the year where things have changed and I'm just not feeling, I need to grow, move forward, I'll scrap everything on there and start fresh, and just things will come to me and provide inspiration. I just find that to be really important.
Yeah. And you said twice a year, right?
It depends. It depends on the year. So I say I'm a type of person that like whatever works for you, that's what you have to find out first, because remember, we're our own unique selves. So what I did in that time when I was trying to work through is I was gathering all of these ideas from other people that had made it through something tough. That was through books. That was sometimes on Instagram, wherever I could find it. And then I would try it on, sort of like trying on clothes. Everybody's body is different, so things might not work for you, and if it doesn't, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that, don't be concerned. You just need to look for the next thing that does work.
Absolutely. And you're just like closing it nice and full circle here, since we've got a few minutes left, in the sense that you talked about not feeling boxed into the expectations of others and find those things that you can start building that lighthouse with. Is that sound appropriate, Kelly?
It's totally does. I love it.
That is so cool. So let's take a few minutes here for some questions that you
Okay.
feel really expand the topic. So we started with, why don't you reframe the question or restate the question for everyone?
So the first question, like the big question,
Mhm.
how do you find what makes you unique and happy?
Mhm.
That one.
Absolutely. Or why
Um,
feel sad when they get out of bed?
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I sort of lost it there. So what would you like me to do with that big question again? Break it down again?
We've got the reminder of the big question. So what do you think are some ones that we've touched on today, or some that you would mention, some great questions for people that you feel are parallel, or expand the topic in the right way?
I see. Okay. Well, okay. First off, the thing that I would do is take some time to yourself and connect with your inner voice. Because most often, and again, I can only speak for women who I am, right? Most often as women, we have been told for such a long time, even as a young girl, to quiet that inner voice. And we don't trust ourselves, and we've forgotten, we're disconnected from it, very similarly to the way we're disconnected from our stomach muscles after we have a baby. So you need to refind it. You need to spend some time by yourself, and that could be walking, whatever it is that makes you happy. Well, I think fresh air does wonders. So that's why I say walking. Whatever the thing is that makes you truly happy, nobody else happy, just you. Find the thing that it is, go and spend some time there and find what that inner voice is telling you. It's going to tell you about your passions. It's going to tell you about the things that you're happy with. And sometimes the things that you're happy about and that you're passionate about aren't what the world like. So be aware of it. It's not bad, but just connect with it, find it, listen to it. That's what I would say is like the first thing that you need to do. And then once you find that, then you can start moving towards, doing your own research. And it can be super fun. It doesn't have to be like anything difficult. It's reading, it's finding the right people to follow on Instagram, whatever the thing is that works for you, to determine what are some ideas that can help me move towards this passion. And then creating those daily habits that kind of keep you growing and moving forward. It's that growth mindset. Definitely look up growth mindset, by the way, during your research, because there's pieces of it, however you like to set goals, there is a free workbook for you online somewhere that works for you. Find it, start creating goals, start putting up pictures of things that are awesome to you. One of the first things that I did on my vision board was, and I had no idea how I was going to do this, by the way, you guys, like I just had a picture of a house that I envisioned us living in someday. And I at the first, I just drew the picture. I didn't even know. I just knew that the house is going to have a super huge, big wraparound porch. I had no idea how I was financially going to get there because I was in a pretty bad place financially. So this was like a total like moonshot dream. And I was just going to put it up on my board. And I'll tell you what happened. Randomly got the opportunity, came across this house when we weren't even looking, and put in an offer that they should have never even agreed to. Didn't even think we could get all the things fell into place that were supposed to fall into place just because I put the positive thought out there and had a picture. So that kind of stuff really gets you going. I would say those are the first things, the gratefulness exercises as part of your habits. Those are the main, that's what I would dig into. So I hope, and if you have anything else, Bryant, too, that you would, for me, those were the beginnings of moving towards your happy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know a lot of people don't want to set goals. Everything she mentioned is fantastic. Yes, goals will help you define also what failure is, right? And so there are two sides of it. So, I hope
Failure is just a lesson, by the way. Like it's just learning something that doesn't work, just the same as if we try on an outfit or we try on someone else's idea and it doesn't work. That's what failure is. Not failure in a bad way. It's just being like, oh, that doesn't work. I'm going to find what works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love it. I'd love it if one person in our community could start dating that way, right? Where you
Yes.
actually can't lose. You're just constantly growing.
Exactly. Don't just because like, oh my gosh, you bring up that this is like something so huge for me because I was first married in my circle of friends at a fairly younger age. And the thing that I was hearing from these women most often were like, oh, I don't want to be alone. It was like a scare. It was like, they were scared. And I was like, no, that's not how it works. You have to first connect with yourself and know the things that you're looking for. And that changes over time, by the way. And when you go out there and you're dating somebody, it's so to find out if that person meshes and fits with you, not how you can mold yourself and mesh to fit with them, just like you do the rest of the world. It's you as you.
Hmm. Yeah, that sacred place, right? Just with
Mm-hmm.
you two. And you know what? Head up, heart open, like the end of Five O Goes West, and you might find that you're the hero you've been looking for.
It's so true. I love that movie.
Yes, it's so good. So Kelly, you know what? This has been fantastic. And for everybody in the audience, thank you again for joining us. It's always a treat. And if you want to find us on Anchor or Kelly, where are the places they can find you?
I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, but I am on all the socials and it's at Kelly Ryan Bailey. So feel free to come and find me. I would love to continue the conversation.
That sounds great. And for everybody out there, please keep adventuring, keep planning and have people around you that support you. Orient yourself on these beautiful questions, find that purpose statement, reach out for support. Unconditional love and being genuinely interested in people are really going to be a great guide on your path. if that's a goal of getting there or a goal of getting 2 feet off the ground, we call that success, and that feels like every day. So thank
Mhm.
you, everyone out there. These questions are incredible, and what you're doing with it is just, it's fantastic by every definition of the word, just truly fantastic. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.